All right. Thank everyone for joining us for the Ella Project and the Office of Nighttime Economy's latest music census session. We're going to be talking career sustainability in the music industry. We're going to be joined by Raney Antoine of Loyola University and his own multiple music projects that I'll give him a chance to describe, and our longtime friend Sarah Quintana, band leader, musician, and artist extraordinaire, fundraiser as well, as we talked about just a minute ago offline, for this conversation. Before we get started, I want to highlight a couple of friends. My partner at the Ella Project, Ashley Keaton, is also on the Zoom. Ashley, if you want to say hello, and Ashley runs many things at our organization, but especially our pro bono legal services, which I know many of y'all have taken advantage of over the years to ensure that you are well suited and well versed in intellectual property, contracts, business incorporation, and those sorts of things. Thanks for joining us, Ashley.
Hey everyone, it's good to see everyone here, and I know that it's going to be a great program. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you again soon.
Thank you, thank you. And then Julia Heath with the Office of Nighttime Economy, who has really been the inspiration behind this series and has been a great partner. Julia, if you want to come on and also maybe talk about what we have coming up in the next couple of weeks for these sessions.
Yeah, hi. Thanks everyone for being here. Super excited about this and super excited generally to kick off block 3. I think that, when we first started doing these sessions, what we're diving into in these next 3 is really kind of the key part of what we were talking about in terms of like how to sustain your business, how to focus on making sure that you're making long-term plans and building a team that can sustain that and such. So I'm just excited to be here today and hang out with y'all virtually for the next couple weeks.
And as Julia mentioned, yeah, on September 24th, 2 weeks from now, we're going to do building and managing your music team alongside Lou Hill, Waterseed, and our own Crescendo program, his partner in crime at Crescendo, Bree Whetstone, Mike Kappas, retired booking agent and manager extraordinaire from California, who's done some other workshops for the Ella Project over the years, which you guys may have seen. And then Ashley will be moderating that discussion as well. That's going to be a good one. And then October 1st, leveraging licensing sync opportunities. We're bringing Lou back because we love always talking to Lou. So Lou will be doing that October 1st as well. Joined by Blakely of music supervisor, known to a lot of people in town because he was a music supervisor for Treme and has done some other cool projects as well. And then Ashley will be on that panel as well because she has myriad years of experience in the licensing and sync arena. So those should all be good. You can RSVP and get the link for those on our website at ellanola.org and at the Office of Nighttime Economy's office. But I think it's Music Census Sessions NOLA. Julia, do I have that correct?
So close. It's NOLA Music Session or nolamusiccensus.org/sessions. But yeah, nola.gov/night also has resources and direction to get you to where you need to go.
They do, and they also have a lot of these previous recordings from this series so far. And Julia has some good documents, including like a business plan template, which is one of the things we'll be talking about today, which is also posted on that site. So I definitely encourage you to check all that information out. It's quite a great resource, and I just can't thank the office enough for all the great work they're doing for New Orleans. Okay. So there we go. So let's go ahead and get rolling. I think what we'd want to do is we're going to go into some specifics, but I think Raney and Sarah, let's start at the top level, basically, and give us an idea. 2025, we all know the music business can be complicated. We also know that both of y'all have been doing this for a while and have obviously had some success. Just give us an idea of what it's like right now. What are you doing? What are you seeing? And how are you keeping it going? Sarah, let's start with you.
Well, thanks, Jean, and thanks everybody for having me. When I got the call for presenting on sustainability in your music career, I had just turned 40, and I guess I have been doing this a while. So it's really exciting to reflect back. I definitely have a beginner's mindset right now as everything's changing so quickly. Social media, AI, the options are unlimited for how you make it work. And I think 2025, the music biz is about finding out what works for you. And the more you know yourself, the more you know your strengths and what you need and what your goals are, to me, that's going to be the more you get out of your music business model. And I'll just start there.
Excellent, thank you. And Raney, I think you have a unique perspective because you create your own art and your own music, but you're also teaching it over at Loyola Music Business School. So, from your perspective, and then maybe the perspective of your students, what do you see in these days?
Yeah, I think the idea that Sarah's saying, figure out what works for you in a time, the buzzword of access and opportunity and all those things are there and exist. I think now more than ever, you have to be very honest with yourself about who and what you are, as an artist, as a business person, both those at the same time. And when it comes to the students I teach, um, there's many people who come and major and then go to sign record deals and do multiple publishing deals, consecutive years and in a row. And then we have some folks who wind up leaving the program. And then if we look at the popular industries, same situation. Whether you're a producer, songwriter, musician, you get in it, you see what it is, and then some people are built for it and some are not. What am I seeing? I'm seeing it's very much easier and clearer for the lifers, everyone who are on here. It's much more clearer, the distinction between those who are in this for the love of our craft and those that are not. And I highly, highly, highly encourage all of us to assure that our teams and our circles are full of lifers. Um, that's my thought, my initial thought.
Excellent, excellent. Let's take that last part and then dive off of that. We could all see if we had all the resources in the world, what sort of a team we could establish. But from a level of a working, successful musician, but not necessarily a huge, some ideas on what you think would be the most important people to bring in to help you out with this journey, with this career, and kind of how you know when there's decisions. Randy,
Sarah,
you
you
mentioned,
wanna?
so you start with that.
Okay, cool. Sarah, did you want to go first or? Okay. Um, Pops taught me to be chivalrous. You know what I'm saying? So, um, and the right people that are supposed to be around you, and the most important people are the people that we all will spend loads of time with and feel good as a human being. That's the foundation. Uh, I think we miss that a lot of times because we feel like uh obviously acumen and successes and points up on the scoreboard are very important when it comes to our industries because a lot of people BS a lot of things. But in our world, Sarah talking about, headed overseas and just putting out the project. And when we're working on these projects that demand these 12, 15, 17-hour days, I'm spending more time with you than I am myself, spending more time with these people in these rooms than we are our loved ones, and our mattresses and our comfy beds. Do I want to be around these people, these humans, for that extended period of time, and let alone talk about get on the road with somebody? As Sarah very well knows, the road will reveal a lot, right? Opportunity, access, and resources does just the same. So no matter what the resources you have or don't have, who are the human beings around you? And 9 times out of 10, if you have a vision for something that is worth investing in, the people who love and care about you on an intimate level as well as a professional level, never have an issue investing in something that has vision, not just a good idea.
I love it, Rainey. And I think I'm like your case study for everything you're talking about. I've had so many managers straight out of college. My first Jazz Fest in 2008 on, and one day I was on the phone with Jennifer Coolidge being booked for her one of her parties, and she just told me, I talked to your manager, but he's not getting back to me. Why don't you just hire a teenager and give her a flip phone? And I decided, I think it was about in 2012 or 13, to just start hiring my friends, pay them 20 an hour. They can help with the admin burden of running a music business by yourself. And that was such a game changer, such great advice. In addition to just kind of being open-minded and seeing that, not every musician is going to get a record deal, going to get signed. There's many different ways to do it. Um, I would definitely say that that was a good idea. And I still work with one of the same assistants that I've had for our festival season applications and all the admin stuff. Spending time with people. I've been really lucky to be surrounded by good people that love my work and to know who my fans are through things like Kickstarter and crowdsourcing and patronage and sponsorship, which I think was more popular when I first started, but is less popular now. But I don't use Patreon or platforms like that. But what I will do is have project specific budgets. And when there's gaps in funding, reach out and request the support that I need for those projects.
Yeah, I think the 2 points she just highlighted, and I'll throw a project coordinator in there as a framing. For for us creatives, we all generally loathe the admin stuff because the admin stuff takes away from the creative stuff, and the creative stuff is our fuel. And when we have to put the fuel down to go make the donuts, it is difficult. Hopefully, that imagery makes sense. When I was working on multiple projects at the same time, producing as a music producer, producing other people's records, while wrapping up my own personal records as a producer artist, with people all over the country, might I add. Obviously, that's how we create these days. We get on a virtual session with cool tools like Muse or um, audio movers and things like that, or however the case may be. We're working on all these things, and then it's like, oh, but we have to be as artists in the market. We have to be outside. We have to do live events. So then prepping for a live event, then we're doing other creative things like I did my first short film uh, this summer, as well as shooting a documentary of my flow state project. All of these things happening all at the same time, concurrently feeding one another. The thing that was difficult for me prior to having a project coordinator and like executive assistant, like Sarah was saying, is that all these emails, sometimes I missed the email that needed an immediate response because I'm in the studio or I'm in another meeting that really matters. Having someone to be able to do administrative things as simple as just answering emails on your behalf, compiling the different things throughout the week that need to be handled, like literally keeping our creative brains, for some of us who are not as administratively inclined. Okay, here are the goals. Here are the things we have to get done this week, this month, this quarter. And then having someone to help them as well. Um, so just a coordination assistant, an operations assistant. Literally, I think if you have 2 people, one that's like super administratively minded, locked in, ready to go, and then you have anyone who is just a competent adult that believes in your vision, like she said, a teenager with a flip phone, to help them as things may overflow from time to time, having them on standby, those two people can help you immensely. I've been telling all of my artists and producer homies that that's the way for us. Everyone wants a manager because we think that's going to be the thing that gets us the next opportunity. A manager is going to get the next plug. A manager is going to be get the next opportunity. And with my friends in LA, Atlanta, New York, we have the conversations. It's like the team as a whole is the new manager. Allow us, the creatives, let's all take it upon ourselves to not only be the talent, but to be the engine behind innovation, connection, all the things that it'll take to move our career to the next point. When I did that, that's when life started really moving for me professionally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's really good advice. Sarah, before we got on, you were giving us an idea of what you're up to in the next couple of months. And it includes, international touring. You just released an album. You're doing a fundraising project and gigging around town as well. Two questions. First one is working off of what Raney was talking about how he keeps himself organized. How do you do the same when you have all these multiple things, including, being out of the country for a couple of weeks? And then secondly, I did want to dive into releasing albums right now and what that looks like just from the business perspective, what you see the goals of recorded albums these days, and what goes into it from your perspective as an artist.
So my memory works backwards to forward, so I'm going to answer the second question first. Releasing an album, I think at the end of the day, it's got to be about the joy of the music, or why would you go through all of the work? It's so much work. Um, I think for me, it was really important to release another album just because I had the creative vision. I wanted to record at Dockside Studios and do like my own Louisiana album. I've been a side person for so long, and I've been in the singer-songwriter world, but I've never kind of put my Louisiana Cajun French roots and New Orleans roots in the forefront of my music. So I just had it in me, and the songs were there, and the team was there. And I'd never made a vinyl, so I always really wanted a vinyl record. And with everything shifting to digital platforms and not having to worry about CDs, I felt like I could justify a budget for a vinyl record, even if the digital release was mostly promotional, and to try to rack up critical mass on Spotify for booking, which honestly is great. Having a few songs that get streamed a lot can give you a ton of gig opportunities. So, Baby Don't, my new record, was really just my heart project, and it took a while to finance and to actually create. Delegation was the secret of my success. I had one band member paid to do charts and arrangements. One drummer helped with printing all of our labels so that we could do our radio press release ourselves. And we actually mailed a CD and a pair of Mardi Gras beads and a tiny Tabasco to every radio station in the blues Americana genre in the states that we could find. And then it's the first record that I hired PR help on too. And then of course, my trusty right hand project manager, Liana, was awesome. So it was a huge success. It took longer than I would have liked to, but I had to finance it in stages, with one round being grants, Threadhead Jazz Fest, the next round being Kickstarter, and the third round being just kind of managing the monthly budget and finishing post-production, which listening to mixes, making notes, all of that, I had a lot of help with. I think that it's the most satisfied I've ever been creatively, because after all this time, to finally have total control of the sound that you want to hear, and to know that I'm leaving that behind feels great. And then in terms of success, just to be able to play, to keep, even if I just maintain my level, booking festivals locally, a few fly-in dates and weekends at nice venues that treat me well, I'm satisfied. That's enough for me. And knowing that I'm respected in my creative community for having made a good record. If we got a Grammy nomination out of it, I wouldn't mind. But I can only do so much It's out of my hands now how far that record's gonna go. And we're just gonna watch. Then to your other question, which was about the other activities like fundraising and things like that, and what I have going on, and how I organize myself, I'll screen share really quickly the gift of modern technology. I'm just gonna screen share here. And I don't know how thorough my Google Calendar is, but I'm like a mega calendar user, and every single date is color coded. This isn't really my full calendar. And then I'm a spreadsheet nerd. And so for me, sustainability boils down to, can I afford to go or not? How much do I need to make? How much do I need to pay my band? And in looking back on like 20 years of tax returns, some rules of thumb kind of pop up. I'm going to go ahead and show you what my taxes from 2020 looked like. This was pandemic, so it's a little crazy, but I have a spreadsheet from back then, and basically the one of the biggest gifts of being a musician is having money that you have to worry about and that you have to delegate. Money's a renewable resource. And probably the game changer for me came when I opened separate checking accounts and separate credit cards for my Schedule C. So I have a certain credit card that gets all of my music business expenses. And then I have a certain checking account. This is like blank, but it's an example of how I organize my finances that gets all of my incomes. So at the end of the year, my Schedule C is kind of made based on those categories, and you can just dump your whole credit card statement into a spreadsheet, sort it, and get those numbers. And then I also just use my gig calendar and my travel calendar to make sure that I'm keeping track of my income if it's not a W-2 or W-9. And then I 1099 my bandmates so that I don't have to pay extra taxes on that money. And I probably set aside 2 days a year to do this. But having organized finances and have my mom and my best friend are both accountants, and my friend Tatiana is married to my tuba player Jason Jerzak. So we have some resources to share, and getting not afraid of taxes and not afraid of a budget has helped me to be able to project what types of projects and gigs I can do and how little I can gig. Because I don't want to be on the road all the time anymore. I am 40 now, and I would rather be teaching a few private voice lessons, playing a gig that I want to play, and then snuggling my puppy and spending more time with my family. But at a certain point, I had to think about how I could afford to do that. And it meant thinking about how much I wanted to teach or do voice coaching versus how much I wanted to be on the road, and how to separate those things and be able to project income. So now that I have 10 years of income, 10, 20 years of income, let's see if I can get back to this other document. And this is really all I prepared. So let's see if I can show you where I'm going with this. Being organized with the finances helped me to lose less money because I was doing things like writing off meals to go. And then it also helped me decide which years I was going to take a loss. So the year that I recorded Baby Don't, the year that I recorded Miss River, every few years, it's okay to take a loss on your tax return. And as long as it's not more than 2 years in a row, you are still a musician. It's not a hobby if you're making an income consistently over time. So at a certain point, deciding when to declare a loss can be a real game changer. If, for example, the year that I did a big fundraiser and I had $15,000 of income for that fundraiser, I had to declare that on my taxes. So that was income that inflated my taxes. But the following year, when I hired the PR firm and finished mixing, mastering, and post production, I declared a loss because that was the expenses. And if you do it right, you don't have to lose so much money over time on your taxes. Um, so looking back, I decided that I wanted more money still, other than grant money, artist residencies, fundraising. Where are places that musicians can help supplement their income, especially if they're more focused on their art or they need to you know, honor creative commitments along with taking care of a family. And what's really interesting there is the fine line between a side hustle versus finding like a specialty area within the music business, within music where you can offer services. And so side hustles, I'd say for me in like my 20s were like babysitting or waiting tables, whereas like in my 30s and 40s, finding my niche was getting special training to work with injured singers or to have enough of a voice background to do gender affirming voice, or now I coach singers in the studio while they're doing their vocal takes. And that is really rewarding and satisfying and fun. And it supplements my income in an awesome way that I can predict. And it allows for me to shift from relying on my gig money for my rent to knowing that I'm going to have my rent and I can explore creatively in ways that aren't going to put me in too much of a box, if that makes sense. That was a lot, but that was pretty much what I wanted to share with you today.
No, that's brilliant, and I think all that is great. So the tax information is, if everyone was that organized, you might put us out of business, which would be a good thing because of the skills there. So that's great to see. And I do want to talk a little bit about the voice and how you got there. So let's put a pin in that, and we'll bring that later, because I do think that the pathway to be able to set that up as what seems like potentially more than just a side hustle, as a real second career, it seems really interesting to me. Raney, I want to bring you back in. Let's talk a little bit about, and I think it dovetails off of Sarah's conversation, with some projects. You had talked a lot when we talked previously about project management, how to get things ready, and how to, similarly to as she showed us with her spreadsheets, budget and find a way to be successful at, and also defining what success means. I know that you shared with me previously conversation about a Juneteenth event that you had held. And I thought that was an interesting example. And I think it would be great to bring that to the audience. If you want to tell us, what inspired that, and what from a perspective that's part of this conversation, you think people should take away from it.
Sure. Speaking to the larger idea of execution, and uh, first of all, Sarah, shout out to you for sharing that information. That's super, super dope. So thank you for that. And when it comes to execution, getting things done, staying organized, I I very much dislike living in an echo chamber. I want to give my ideas other minds to float around in and think about, the minds that I trust. So I have a great friend of mine, Andrew Albert, who works at Idea Village. Um, is one of the execs over there, and I super trust him with my thoughts, with my ideas, and to hold them dear because we are creatives and we're sensitive, right? About our stuff, keeping it G, as Erica Badu would say. So because we're sensitive about our stuff, it's rare that we want to tell people our ideas. I think it's important to do that because the Juneteenth event wouldn't have happened, I don't believe, the way it did had I not shared my ideas and my thoughts with Andrew. And when we did that, we whiteboarded. If you guys aren't familiar with whiteboarding, you can split it up into quarters or whatever divisions you want to do for a particular period of time or a year. And you put all of the things, you throw everything at the wall, and then you ideate and you work through what fits. In that, I put out a record titled Roses at the beginning of this year. And I knew that I wanted to shoot a cinematic that was part film, part music video that ended up being a short film. Uh, Shout out to my colleague, Camille DeBose, super dope filmmaker. And when I told Andrew this, he was like, okay, so for the in-person activation, what does that look like for you? And I said, well, I definitely want the space to be earth toned because I'm an earth tone guy. I love the feel of that color palette. And I was like, I know what I want it to look like. I know what I want it to feel like. And I would love the food to be involved because I love to eat, right? And the idea was that people interact with art so passively in 2025. So talking about putting out an album in 2025, what does that mean? Well, when we have our community, we know our people are going to listen. That's not the concern. We want new people, so new revenue can come in. So hopefully we can have some profit and not loss. As Sarah was saying, we want to be strategic, but at the same time, we would love to have more revenue. We would all love to have more resources. So one of my investments was I want art to gift others something that they don't expect tangibly. So we partnered with Lanyap Bakehouse, right there off of Aretha Castle Haley. If y'all haven't gone yet, Lanyap Bakehouse, y'all should do that. It's like some of the illest baked goods in the city. Um, their owner, Caitlin Guerin, is James Beard nominated. If that means anything to any of you, you should just know that's the creme de la creme of the creme de la creme. And the reason that that relationship happened was because Andrew made the intro. I didn't know them. We developed a relationship. I went over, I supported, I tasted the product, and I was like, this is crazy. All I want to do is come and bring my art into this space. And every time my song plays, it will pick up the tab for whoever's ordering at that moment. So the music is happening. We had a DJ there. We had roses throughout the spot. I invited my community and the folks that rock with me and follow me, as well as the regular patrons on a Saturday that wound up being Juneteenth. And it was a beautiful thing because you had people all creed, color, vibes pull up, and the look on people's faces when they didn't have to pay for whatever price their order was. Um, One particular group of women, young women who were doing a bachelorette party, they were like, but our order is so big, like we have all these people. And I was like, it doesn't matter. The record just gave you a rose for the day, and shout out to the bride. And it was a beautiful moment. It was great. You had aunts dancing with nephews, and you had an old lady bop into the music with her guest who was much younger than her, maybe a granddaughter or something. So that whole thing happened because I had a person around me that I could share an idea with, and they could connect a dot that I didn't even see was there to be connected. I would definitely second the PR point with Sarah. Um, I had a year with a PR firm that was super fruitful because they have a different way of viewing what getting your name out there means. To creatives, we see certain spaces and places and identify those as opportunities, while a public relations firm sees it globally, nationally. So because of them, I'm quoted in a book that is covering J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. I'm a contributing interviewee. I would have never in my mind been like, yeah, let me see who's writing books right now. And that comes across the desk. These types of opportunities avail themselves when you have super connected people. And the Lanyard Bakehouse event was just that. And I was able to pull in Life Code research lab that I'm a part of that's housed in Johns Hopkins University, as well as Hip Hop RX, a research lab under that umbrella that I'm the associate director of. All of my uh, all of my lines of work were able to be braided together in a way that it just served community and it served the art, and it was a great time. So, was there anything specific else you wanted me to touch on with Lanyap, Gene?
I mean, I think that's great information, and I really like the idea of you bringing in people who you wouldn't necessarily always look at as, you know, your classic primary audience and primary partners, but you see how they are really actually connected, and I think that's really interesting. I want to jump back to one thing, Sarah, you had mentioned when you were showing us your budget document about grants. And typically in the arts world, I think we all associate grants with nonprofits, with people that are doing after school education in music. But that's not necessarily what you were getting funding for. You were getting funded for your music projects. And I think that's interesting because I think it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily look at. So I wondered if you could talk about your experiences there. And Raney, I'm sure you have some stuff to share on that as well.
Yeah, and I'll just say, Rainey, that's so inspiring. I'm so happy that you had that event, and I think the joy of giving back and being able to share the music and the art for free and watch that transform people is absolutely uh magical. So thank you for sharing. So I took a course in 2012. It was like at the early days of the coaching, before coaches were a thing. And I took a course, an online course in patronage and sponsorship. And this is after I did a Kickstarter and had a few grants. I had my Studio in the Woods residency, which was an awesome introduction to the artist residency in grant world. And I had a friend that helped me write a grant for the Love Letters Project to perform love letters set to music from World War II. And that was rolling in France and in the States. And so I had dabbled in it. But what I didn't know is that you can just cold call or write people with foundations or with funding or past donors and say, I have this project. Would you like to support it? This is my dream. This is my vision. And then you can find your own fiscal sponsor. And lucky me, I just asked the Threadhead Foundation, I asked Jazz Fest. You know, there's already all of these nonprofits everywhere. Whether or not they want to take 10% is up to them. 10% is what a fiscal sponsor would typically take for a grant. But it's easier sometimes to find money from people that like your music and your work than it is to fit your creative world into these very rigid artist proposal grants. So I had applied for Wurlitzer Foundation, Malarag, all these different grants, and maybe like 1 out of 10 I would get. But at a certain point, I saved a lot of time just knowing who the foundations that would support me were and what organizations locally on the ground. Material Institute is another wonderful organization. And I would highly recommend doing that if you need money for a project.
Sarah killing. That is it. Like the throwing the spaghetti at the wall is great. Just seeing what'll stick. But man, I think just given the vibes, Sarah would probably second this. The most support you will ever get is from the people who are closer connected to you that just rock with you, the human being. That's and probably enjoy your music like she's saying and are very knowledgeable about what you have going on, and maybe you built something or did something prior that may be less in size of what you want to do, but man, as an artist we have to make sure we're shooting our shots. We have to make sure that we allow our imagination uh to fuel our goal to just shoot that shot, man, to cold email, like she's saying. In the very same fashion, I had a thought to do a creators retreat with some industry producers, culture bearers that I identified. And I called up Focus, right, who's a pro audio company. I'm sure most of the people, this is a music forum, so if I'm sure you're familiar with who Focusrite is, and had a relationship prior and hadn't done an event myself with them, but was able to contact their senior marketing manager and was like, hey, here's this thought. And mind you, I have a cool relationship with Dan, but the idea wasn't even fully baked. I said, this is my thought. This is the ethos behind it. This is why I want to do it. Are you interested? Because I want you to be a big part. They said, let's go. And now myself and my Flow State family, the all of the guests at all of the guests from the event are invited to their 40th anniversary party happening in Nashville in 2 weeks. So it just deepens the relationship for everyone involved, as well as making the event go. The event wouldn't have happened without Focusrite. At the same time, applying for Sounds of Us cohort, that gave me a budget to be able to solidify certain foundational things within the business structure, as well as being able to have a team that you can compensate and make sure they're taken care of for their time. So that cold emailing, identifying people who align with your mission, align with your vision, and reaching out to them directly. Shout out to Material Institute. I did a production intensive over there. Uh, and it was incredible. So those types of people, those types of organizations, definitely look for who aligns with your mission, because you would be surprised if you just have the courage to open yourself up and let them know what you got going on. You'll be shocked at who wants to support you and how much they'll support you.
Excellent. And Randy, we had talked earlier, and I think it goes to the point of who wants to support you and about demographics and attracting audiences. And, I know that we talked about how we're overwhelmed with data and the idea of like, okay, well, what does this mean if I get this many views, or how many people went to my Instagram feed? But you had some different thoughts about how to make that information work and how to come from it from a goal setting idea of bringing in new audiences and figuring out who really rocks with you. And I'd love if you could take a moment to expand on that.
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to demographic, I think that may be one of those targets that was created just so maybe someone could have a job in the industry. It's a very interesting metric. The reason I say this is it's very much the same reason that genres were ever created. Genres were created for radio platforms to be able to signal to the listener what they're about to hear, and in what category, which thus created this thing within the artist of, oh, I have to make sure my music fits this construct, this label of what it is or what it is not. I think of demographic in the same way that I think, and that may be a radical, quote unquote, view of genre, but that's my take. Demographic is just the same. Is that we're excluding, if I'm trying to target something specific, I'm inherently excluding something or someone. And I think all of us on this call would love for our art to be worldwide, statewide, nationwide. The nation is not one demographic. The world is not one or two or three demographics. There's many ages, many nationalities, many ethnicities. I think if we approach our marketing in that manner, you're inherently leaving things on the table. So I would notice, one, does anyone care at all about what I do and what I make? The way I teach, I'll go to my students. The way I teach my students and is like, if your friends and family won't buy a thing from you or attend a thing that you put on, you might be headed to Hobbyland, like Sarah was just talking about, which is fine. That is cool. Nothing wrong with that. But if you know you have a consistent community that supports who and what you are and what you do, that's one demographic. That's fam and friends. Don't dilute it to ages and ethnicities and nationalities. You can take in information and say, oh, people are streaming over here. Maybe I do something special with another artist over there. Why another artist and not me immediately go and play a show? Well, I should probably ingratiate myself over there and see what's going on. Maybe I should have someone that's more knowledgeable in this space before I try to jump into this space. A lot of times people will tell you, and again, I'm in the academic space, I hear these lectures all the time about if your Spotify rap says this, or if your artist information says that, you need to target that market. Do your homework, see who's over there, what's over there, and connect with people there. Because a lot of times, if you're going in somewhere blind as an artist, as a performing artist, as a recording artist, that may be much more difficult to gain traction. Um, Finding the people who resonate with you again on a human level, who resonate with your art. That's the demographic you want because you may be shocked again by who enjoys your music. One example, I put out a record and I got a random message on one of the social media platforms from a 50, 60-year-old couple saying that they were doing their vow renewal and that this was going to be the dance at the reception for their vow renewal. Now, if Rainey had said that I wouldn't necessarily post on Facebook or whatever, a platform that skews uh, closer to an elder demographic, maybe those 50 to 60-year-old people wouldn't have seen the song and heard the song. And now my record is tapped in with a vow renewal of an older couple who I don't know at all because I didn't say, well, ain't nobody for me over there on Facebook, or ain't nobody over there for me on TikTok, ain't nobody over there for me on Instagram, ain't nobody there for on X or Twitter or whatever. Those are my thoughts on demographic, is that it's one of those things that can be binding and can tie your hands a bit if you view it as the end all be all rather than just information to interrogate, if that makes sense.
It makes a ton of sense. Sarah, I want to bring you in because as someone who's followed your career, and I think I heard even earlier in some of your conversations, I have a feeling that maybe you struggle to get some of these genre classifications because your sound and your style is eclectic. So I wondered if you could riff on that and riff on some of the other things that Randy had brought to the table.
I hate it. I hate having to click which box as many of us, especially in Louisiana, do, where there's so many influences. And so I think it's about knowing where you fit in things. And going to France certainly helped me understand that there is already, without me even knowing it, a Louisiana music, a New Orleans music thing. And I'm a singer that plays guitar, so I'm already in the singer-songwriter thing. So I didn't really have to think too hard about it. I'm kind of stuck, even though I've done hip hop albums. I've sung for the Generationals, pop and indie rock bands, and I've sung and toured with Beau Soleil. I had to decide what can I do to stretch this singer-songwriter, artist, composer category as much as possible. And so what I did was I chose unique instrumentation that reflected Louisiana. I chose to sing in French, and I'm going more like French New Orleans singer-songwriter, roots Americana. And I'm deciding that to circle around the things that are already working and to reinforce those demographics and venues and festivals and listenerships is going to be more beneficial for me than going on a tour where I'm opening for some band and no one knows me because I don't have a national touring base in that town. And like, great if I'm opening for Beau Soleil and I'm doing a little French thing, or I'm on tour with a Louisiana-based act, but very hard as national touring in US as a artist without that demographic. So I need that demographic. I need Americana Fest in Nashville's going on right now, and I don't necessarily like the term Americana or being put in the singer-songwriter category, but I've come to accept it as my fate and to try to make a claim for Louisiana music being the original Americana music, the French Louisiana connection being my own brand of roots music. And it's kind of just like a yes and it is frustrating. But I'm really hoping that my new record fits enough into the roots music category because that's the category of the Grammys that I made it for to be eligible in.
Perfect, perfect. I think we're getting to about time. I did want to bring in our audience. You know, when you guys RSVP'd and were so gracious enough to join us in this conversation, I want you to think about some things that you maybe thought, well, I really hope they talk about X. And if we haven't talked about X, I think now's a great opportunity to do so. I think the easiest way, because we have a relatively small group on here, but I can't see everybody for the hand raise. If you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask, and we'll do our best to take it. Does that sound good to everybody? You're also free to use the chat box if you prefer to just type it out, and I can read it out to everybody.
Yeah, I got a question.
Go for it.
Hey, good to see you guys. Thank y'all for being here. This has been absolutely wonderful. I am in a position where I can't like tour or perform anymore, and I'm just doing studio work and releasing albums of my own music, professionally produced. Of course, I'm struggling to get my music heard and get it out there. Just wonder if you had any tips or advice for that situation.
Sarah, you
Ready?
want to take it? Or? Okay, cool. Nice to meet you, John. So I heard you correct, and you cannot perform live and you can't go out on the road or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm older. I got some hearing problems and just
So
yeah, me and stages don't get along anymore.
sure, sure. Um, so with that, obviously it makes it a bit tricky for you, right? Like how do I get my music heard if I can't be outside on the road doing the thing, being on the stages? Um, Maybe your music is platformed with some other aspect of who and what you are. Um, Collaborate yourself. Myself, I never planned on being an academic or an educator. But who I am as a producer, songwriter, musician is what enables me to do that. But it also has allowed me to work on different things that have nothing to do with making records. My music just platforms there because the relationship allows for it. So maybe there's a world in which you collaborate with someone else. And it's like, hey, I make these type of records, or I love your product, or I love what you do, or I love where you're at with things. Can I write for you? Can you sync my music to your films or your YouTube channel? Or I love your TikTok. Can I be your composer for your TikTok rather than paying for or trying to just match sounds with whatever is trending? I'll make things custom for you. Like Sarah was saying, service-based uh, work. Um, and that's how you can potentially platform your music with collaboration. And then maybe it's a world where, and this is where I say we have to have the courage and gall. Maybe there's a world where if you're hearing impaired, what happens if John produces an event for those that are hearing impaired? What if you embrace that, I don't know if you do now or not, but with my lack of knowledge, embrace that hearing impairment and say, just because I have a hearing impairment doesn't mean I should be enjoying things out there. Let me go find a venue that would allow us to do certain things at a noise level that's comfortable for us, or in an environment that's comfortable for us. Um, I would say think about one, platforming and collaborating with others, and two, man, imagine what can you create for people who are just like you as well, who like, dang, I can't even go anywhere because it's too loud or it's too this or too that. Those are my initial thoughts off the dome. Hopefully that's helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think you nailed it, Rainey. I'm just gonna say, welcome to the club, John. Most musicians are touring. They want to. They want money. They want gigs. They want the music out there. It's really hard to sell shows. It's so expensive to bring your band. Rely on a lot of grants. the Jazz Road grant, all kinds of grants to get musicians out there with you. And I love that you're creating. I've definitely worked with bands that are majority in the studio and then only go out like every few years. So there's nothing wrong with being a composer. And I absolutely love this idea of some kind of hearing conservation, hearing injury prevention angle with it. So that's very cool.
And that reminds me, Sarah, you had mentioned earlier that you're doing fundraising and nonprofit work for people with voice issues. And I just wondered if you want to talk a little bit about that, how you got involved in it and what you guys are going to be up to in the next couple months.
Yeah, so I have kind of an academic clinical role too now, in addition to being a performer. And it's a lot having two full-time gigs. So I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I have about 50-50 taking care of people with their voice disorders, raising money for voice disorders, and trying to create more healthcare pathways for musicians that need throat care, specifically losing voices after gigs. Vocal hygiene and injury prevention is my specialty. And so that fundraiser for Dysphonia International is going to be next month. And we're just organizing some walks in the park. And there's going to be an online link. And we don't know a lot about voice disorders, but what we do know is that we can prevent them with healthy technique, good warm ups, and some basic vocal hygiene. And so, career sustainability, we need our voices. We need to be able to sing and talk or communicate. And that's kind of the way that I'd like to give back in the future.
Excellent, and thank you for doing that. And we look forward to seeing more about the event coming up next month as well. We do have a question from the chat from Jay Mix. It says, I want to know what y'all's thoughts are on keeping your music on platforms such as Spotify and Apple Music with the rise of AI artists in music. I've seen lots of independent artists toy with this decision over the last few months. Either one of y'all who wants to jump in, give us your thoughts.
Hey, I'm always alley to you, Sarah. So curious as to what alternatives are out there that are just as impactful. Um, Nothing is more impactful than general access. So that doesn't really exist outside of the streaming platforms and YouTube. That's just where discoverability is because that's where the people are right now. So I don't know if there's anything that's just as impactful from how many people have access from an accessibility standpoint. But at the same time, the things like the Patreons and Even and different platforms like that that have pay scales and things like that, paid entry to special events and products and things like that are definitely useful. Speaking to the AI portion of the question, um, I don't know. Maybe Sarah feels differently. I'm not sure, but I'm not afraid of AI at all as an artist. An AI, a robot doesn't have a soul, doesn't have a spirit. It cannot commune with us. It doesn't have life experiences. It only gathers data and then synthesizes, which it's very good at. A lot of us use AI as tools, creatives, um, both musically as well as other ways. I know I have some homies who have put in uh, song writes that they've done, right? So full song lyrics and said, analyze this. Not that they want lyrics back, but they just say, analyze this up against the top 20 fill-in genre, fill-in qualification across the past 10 years. And then it gets some cool insight. Something as simple as, I think your pre-chorus is too short. Maybe you should repeat again. And it's like, oh, snap. Oh, that does kind of feel good. So I think AI being used as tools is really where artists are hedged towards much more than us being afraid of an AI artist, so to speak. And I think the biggest thing of people taking their music off of platforms is more so not agreeing with how any particular platform moves from a business standpoint. So fundamentally disagreeing with how they function as an enterprise, which is obviously up to every single person in their own convictions. Um, one uh, strategy that I have seen through certain independent artists is that their music will be available in some special way on a paywall uh, platform like an Even or something you can even set up yourself, which I would encourage if you have a website. You drive all the information to yourself rather than allowing these other platforms. Just say, hey, shoot me an email or hey, fill out this form on this website that you control, and I'll send you a link to the project. And that way, a platform like Untitled or a platform like Samply gives you data on who listens, how many times they listen, where they are in the world, where they are in the country. Um, so maybe that's something you want to do. It's like before it's available on all platforms for 60 days, 90 days, it's only available from me directly to you. That takes time, that takes energy, that takes infrastructure. Um, but it negates the whole I'm on the same platform as an AI artist. Um, because connection is the thing you're looking for. And this AI stuff, the gimmicks will happen. Uh, but it's all going to settle out as tool and tech platform at the end of the day, in my opinion.
Sarah, you want to jump in with that?
I used AI to help prepare for today, in case anyone's wondering. I love it. I can give it my past photos and music and tell it to make me a photo with like a Instagram post. I might feed it all my albums and be like, what's Sarah Quintana's next album? But I have all of my published, thanks to Ashley and the Ella organization, I have all my publishing paperwork and royalty stuff done, and I've paid my copyright covers, etc. And I also got my website back when it got stolen. Side note, but thanks again, y'all, for having us. I really have benefited so much from your resources over the years. And one thing that I'm really excited about that I think could be a nice counter to the AI fear of losing jobs to technology is the Artist Corporation. I don't know, Rainey, have you heard about that legislation? So there's a guy in LA, I'm going to send you the TED Talk, but basically, they're trying to pass legislation so that artists can form corporate entities like a corporation. And in that, they would have access to shared ownership beyond just publishing rights. They would have the opportunity to build equity as an artist corporation, and they would be able to maintain creative control with legal protections that corporations have that artists don't. So, kind of like the problem is more capitalism than AI. Like artists need representation and protection, and we have less rights than corporations in terms of our creative work. And so that this is called the A Corps. There's a TED talk about it, and there's some legislation pending. But it's really nice to think about how we might come together to protect our creativity and our creative careers.
Yeah,
Excellent.
real quick, Gene, if I may. That piece is super important. I think it is kind of wild that these AI platforms and they're learning from our music, how to make music. I'm aware of one artist in particular, in LA, whose voice was used and likeness was used to create an AI artist, and it's pretty non-deniable, like undeniable that the voice of said artist who got signed by a super notable producer, and it's just like it's a weird world we're living in. But I do think I super second the idea that legislation is the biggest thing, which is why the business side of things that we've discussed, Sarah having her LLC, 22 Rivers being a culture tech and house and creative house that I found these are the things, and getting as deep into business infrastructure as you can to get those protections and be ready to receive those protections that we ultimately get legislatively in DC if they love artists like they say they do.
Well, you're definitely speaking our language there. So I'd ask the audience, one thing that when they signed up, was there one thing they wanted to make sure we cover? And so now I'm going to ask you guys, when you guys were gracious enough to join us, is there something that you wanted to get out there that we haven't had a chance to get to yet?
Yeah, I will say that early on, someone encouraged me to write thank you notes. This was like in my 20s to anybody that gave me a gig or an opportunity, and that continues to be probably one of the most powerful tools that I have is gratitude, even if it's just a wedding or I wanted like you might get a thank you note from me for this. So yeah, thank you notes are probably my secret to career sustainability.
Well, on that note, thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate both of y'all's knowledge and openness to share, and I know our audience does as well. So thank y'all. Good luck to y'all. I know both of y'all have a very busy fall coming up, so I truly appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to come and chat with our audience. For those of y'all joining us, thank you for coming. And definitely join us in 2 weeks for our next one. And we'll post a video of this probably in a couple days. It takes me a minute to edit. I'm not the world's most skilled video editor, but we make it work while we can. If there are other things that you can take advantage of for Ella Project, either our legal services, our workshops, etc., please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Julia and Ashley. And thank you, guys. Y'all have a lovely day.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.